So I just got my tuition bill recently, and it came out to be $81,000 for a public university. So I go to school here at the University of California, Berkeley, and I've really been trying to figure out why I'm paying $81,000 to a public school. It doesn't really make sense to me because a public university in Canada costs about like $7,000, while in the U.S. we're paying 81,000, and in somewhere like Germany, another huge country like us, it's free. In Norway, a smaller country, free. France, $200. China, maybe like 5,000, 6,000. So like, we're the richest country in the world, but somehow we're still charging students $81,000 to go to school. It feels like it's something that we can fund, at least to me. So I went down this rabbit hole as to like why we're paying for public university, why I'm paying $81,000 to go to a public university. And I think the answer is a little weirder than you would think. Like, a lot of people might say like it's business, schools are a business and it's supply and demand, you know? A lot of people want to go to these schools. But the answer doesn't really do any of that at all. It's really weird. It actually starts with a park. Yeah, a park in Berkeley, California, in 1969, about 50 years ago. So, let me show you what happened. Okay, so 1967, about 2 years before all this happens, the University of California, UC Berkeley, they buy an entire city block, about 2 blocks from campus, using something called eminent domain, which is basically the government's legal way of saying, guys, we're taking this land. I know you've been living here for generations, but we need this land more than you, so sucks to suck, I don't know. So yes, they bulldozed about 40 houses that were on it, 2 blocks from campus, and then this giant plot of land, they do nothing with it. Because they were gonna build a dorm, but the funding for that falls through, so the entire block just sits there empty for about 14 months. It's a muddy lot with abandoned cars. It smells disgusting, it looks disgusting. Just picture like a garbage dump in 1967. That's exactly what it is. And that's 2 blocks from campus. Yeah. So, April of 1969, a guy named Michael Delacour calls a community meeting. This is about 14 months after UC Berkeley buys the block and bulldozes it. So it's 14 months of a bloody abandoned block that everyone walks past, in a huge eyesore basically. So in April 1969, a guy named Michael Delacour calls a community meeting of all the student representatives at UC Berkeley. And his idea is basically, guys, we should just take it. Like, just go do it. Something is better than nothing at this point. It smells disgusting, it looks disgusting. Let's just fucking do something with it, you know? Build something on the empty lot that the university is just leaving there. And a lot of people like his idea. Hundreds of them actually. They lay sod, they plant trees, they build a kids' playground, and a local Berkeley landscape architect even donates equipment. So they build a park in 25 days on land they technically didn't own, and they called it People's Park. And it looked like this. Except it soon looks like this. So on May 15th of 1969, 4:30 in the morning, 250 officers move in. They clear the park at 4:30 in the morning, and they put up an 8-foot chain link fence overnight. And by noon, 3,000 students have gathered at Sproul Plaza, and a student named Dan Siegel gets up to speak. And he says 8 words. Let's go down there and take the park. So obviously police cut his microphone, but the crowd already starts moving, and by mid-afternoon, about 6,000 students are facing 791 officers at the fence. This is all for like a park, by the way. And then tear gas runs out because they first used tear gas to get the student protesters out. So when tear gas runs out, the cops switch to shotguns. And you know what happens when cops have shotguns? They Yeah. So they fire into the crowd and then they fire at the rooftops near the park. And on the rooftop of a bookstore at 2511 Telegraph Avenue, there's this 25-year-old carpenter named James Rector who was watching the entire thing. He was just watching. He wasn't even a student or from Berkeley. He was from San Jose visiting friends. And when deputies turned and fired at the rooftops, let's just say at the hospital, surgeons had to remove his spleen, his pancreas, his left kidney, and his small and large intestine. Yeah, you're not surviving that. He didn't. He died 4 days later. So, that happened. But on the roof right next door, a man named Alan Blanchard was also standing with friends, and he was also shot in the face with birdshot, and he was permanently blinded. Yeah. His daughter didn't know about his father's blindness and wasn't told about it until 2014. So yeah, pretty bad happening right behind me at UC Berkeley. But no deputy ever gets convicted for either shooting. But why is that? Well, the main reason was, at the time, there was this new California governor named Ronald Reagan. That night, Reagan declares a state of emergency in Berkeley. The Berkeley City Council doesn't think it's that deep. It's just a park. Most people would agree it's not that deep. But the Berkeley City Council votes 8-1 against Reagan declaring a state of emergency. But Reagan doesn't care. He sends the troops in anyways. So 2,700 National Guard soldiers occupied the city of Berkeley for the next 2 weeks. And 5 days later, after the 2,700 National Guard soldiers occupied Berkeley, a helicopter flies over Sprout Plaza where everyone gathers and where students are holding a memorial for James Rector. At the memorial, with thousands of students there, the National Guard in the helicopter thinks it's a great idea to spray CS gas over the crowd. CS gas is a chemical warfare agent, and the wind carries it into schools, into classrooms, and even into a hospital. Berkeley is not that big of a town. And despite all this, Ronald Reagan wins the election the next year with 52% of the vote, which isn't crazy if it's 1-1, but 52%. He basically wins by a landslide. This crackdown somehow won him the entire thing, gassing the students. So here's what I need you to understand about Reagan. What happens at People's Park, like the shotguns, the gas, the troops, that wasn't like Reagan losing his temper or trying to do something here. That was part of the plan. He's been doing this campaign, this plan for like about 3 years before 1969, before People's Park. In 1966, when he was running for governor of California, he gives this speech. He describes UC Berkeley as a haven for communist sympathizers, protesters, and sex deviants. Not great things to say about someone, especially a school. Obviously, the world was kind of crazy at the time, so he wins by a landslide, but put that in your mind that the guy doesn't really like UC Berkeley, or students in general, protesting students. And so, when he first becomes governor, like literally at the first Regents meeting, which is like the board for the University of California, he fires the president of the University of California, this guy called Clark Kerr, the guy who basically built the UC system into the greatest public university system in the world. It's still the #1 public school in the world. And yeah, on the first day, he's gone 14-8, and the San Francisco Chronicle front page the next morning says, "Big victory for Reagan." Yeah, so I guess they're behind him on that one too. And one of the 14 votes to fire Kerr came from a UC regent named H.R. Haldeman. You might know him as Nixon's chief of staff, the Watergate dude, you know, just like a whole gang of great guys around here, around Reagan. And then, after firing Clark Kerr, Reagan introduces tuition. UC Berkeley had been free since 1868. Not cheap, not 5,000, 7,000, 200, whatever it is they're paying in France. No, they're completely free. And the whole point of public universities in America, the whole reason they existed up to that point, was that the public funds them and they serve the public. That's how it is in like every other country. Reagan ends that, and here's the reason he gives. Those who want to get an education will go to college whether it's free or not. And those who don't want an education shouldn't be subsidized by the taxpayers. Which he said out loud on the record, but doesn't actually sound that bad, right? Because the people who want to go to school will go and they'll pay. And the people who don't won't pay. But here's the thing that he is actually saying. He's saying that students who get their education for free have no stake in it. No skin in the game, nothing to lose, and people with nothing to lose, they occupy parks, they shut down campuses, and they cause chaos. But if you make them pay, suddenly they have something to lose. Suddenly they care about keeping their place, and suddenly they'll behave. Think about what that actually means, though, because he's not saying tuition is necessary because the university needs money. He's saying tuition is necessary because you can't have free things. Free things will get abused. He's saying the problem with People's Park and the problem with all of it is that these kids had nothing at stake. And his solution wasn't to stop shooting people, stop shooting and gassing students. His solution was make them pay. And that still might make a little sense to you, except here's why that logic is so hard to stop once you accept it. If students should have skin in the game, more skin is always better, right? If $500 a year makes students responsible, $5,000 makes them more responsible. $81,000 even more so. There's no ceiling on this argument. So tuition, why I'm paying $81,000 a year, doesn't go up by accident. It goes up because the logic demands it. So anyways, apart from that, less than a year after People's Park, Reagan is speaking to a group of agriculture industry leaders. Someone asked him about student protesters, and he says, if it takes a bloodbath, let's get it over with. No more appeasement. Yeah. If there's student protesters, let's have a bloodbath. Yeah, great thing to say. I mean, it works for him usually, right? So 27 days later, after he calls for a bloodbath with student protesters, he says, the Ohio National Guardsmen shoot and kill 4 students at Kent State University. Obviously, Reagan tries to walk the quote back and say it was a figure of speech. But honestly, people don't really care. His approval ratings still go up. Like, this guy can say anything. This guy just hates student protesters, and apparently the entire country does too. So, up to this point, I've been talking a lot, so here's what the timeline really is right now. But in 1868, UC Berkeley is founded, and it's free. 1957, Sputnik moment. Russia's technologically very advanced, and we want to catch up. So the federal government floods lots and lots of money into universities across the country, get people educated. It's a service to the country. So in 1969, we have People's Park, and Reagan has his justification for tuition. So he introduces it in 1970. In 1980 is when it gets big. As you probably know, Ronald Reagan becomes president, and he takes the same tuition philosophy national. Federal funding for higher education gets cut across the board, and student loan programs expand to fill the gap. And every state legislature in America starts asking the same question Reagan already answered in California, which is who pays for universities? And the answer everywhere across the nation becomes the same one. Students should pay because they benefit, because they need skin in the game to really care about school. Not because they want to be there, but because they need skin in the game. So, Texas, Ohio, Massachusetts, Florida, everywhere you look, public university funding per student has been falling since the 1980s. The universities, though, they never closed. They've been losing money since the 1980s, but somehow they have another funding source. That somehow is me and you. Us students pay for universities. and Ronald Reagan is why. So when Germany looked at the question of who pays for public universities and says society should pay because an educated population benefits society. Makes sense. When America looked at the same question, they said we should pay because we personally benefit as individuals. One of those answers produced Germany paying nothing for tuition, and the other one produces me paying $81,000 for tuition. So here's what I keep coming back to. Reagan's argument, the skin in the game thing, it sounds almost reasonable, right? Like, yeah, of course you should value what you pay for. But think about what he was actually saying. After People's Park, after James Reister died, after Alan Blanchard lost his sight, after they gassed a student memorial service with a helicopter, his argument, he never said that they went too far. His argument was that the students had nothing to lose, and his solution was to make them pay. People's Park was not just a protest that got out of hand. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It was the moment someone figured out how to make you pay that was supposed to be already yours. College cost money in America because in 1969, a governor decided that students who got a free education had no stake in it, that they didn't care. And then he made sure they never get it free again. So now, if anyone asks you why you're paying tuition in America, now you know why. Because Ronald Reagan thought you didn't care enough about your education.